Welcome back to the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology podcast with Robert Glasscock. I'm Thomas Miller. Thank you for coming back and listening to more. Today we're going to continue this ongoing series that we've done very sporadically, but at some point we'll pull it all together and put it into some form of publication as well. We're talking about how other planets relate to the sun. So if you have like a Sun-Saturn aspect, as we're going to talk about today, what does that look like? And we've always begun this series with the conjunction, because as Robert says, with the conjunction, you are expressing your life's path is to express the characteristics of that planet. So, Robert, I would imagine as we're dealing with Saturn, that would possibly cause even the most seasoned astrologer to wince. What did I sign up for? What are we looking at when Saturn and the Sun are in some kind of an aspect?
Great question. Saturn is, of course, the ruler of the structure of our lives. This planet, as I've mentioned before, when you have the sun, which is a circle with the dot in the middle like a target that you're aiming to be, it's the life force. When it's in any aspect with Saturn, a conjunction, a sextile, trine, square, opposition, it still is Sun-Saturn. The nature of the aspect will tell you whether there is a conflict with the life force or harmony with the life force between the Sun and Saturn. So if it's a conjunction, let's start with that. That can be both, but what it is, it means that the person's life, their entire life, is meant to learn everything they can about what Saturn means. And what does it mean? It, first of all, means maturity. And this is what they're striving for all of their lives. Second, it means respect, which is something else that they're striving for all of their lives. Third, it means work and effort. Nothing really comes to anybody under Saturn without the work and the effort and the responsibility and the commitment. These are all keywords with Saturn. Saturn's exalted in the sign of Libra, which is marital commitment or business partnership commitments. Saturn is accidentally dignified in any sign if it's in the seventh house, which is the house of Libra. So this idea of Saturn and partnerships, other people's, I, thou, me, the other, is all built into Saturn, but so is this idea of responsibility, effort, discipline, focus, work, all of these Saturnian things to give your life structure. So people with Saturn square the sun, like I have it, will find that those things are in conflict with how they want to live. And trust me, the first 20 years of my life were devoted to living as easily and irresponsibly as I could. I thought that was terrific. And then I moved to Los Angeles, where I very deliberately chose to live without knowing a soul. And suddenly I had to learn what life was all about. So I did grow up, and I continued to grow up even all these years later. But at least I've learned to integrate Saturn in my life. So those are the keys, I think, with Saturn. The thing to remember about it is the things that you work for and earn under Saturn are yours forever. Nobody can take them away from you. This has been true in my life. I've been self-employed all my life, which is not the easiest way to go. But in my head, Thomas, I thought it was easier than working 9 to 5 for somebody. That would have been my idea of hell. I don't know, either path is easy. It's just hard to work for somebody else. It's also hard to work for, it's challenging, let's say that. But today, I've learned long ago, embrace those challenges, embrace the conflicts, embrace the obstacles, embrace the delays, and so on that come your way. I'm reminded very much, Thomas, of Elizabeth Taylor, yes, the actress, and in an interview with her once, she'd been famous since she was, I think, 12 years old. And it was a remarkable interview. She said, there's never been a day that I can remember that I wasn't in the public eye. But she also said something else that I have remembered to this day. She said to the interviewer, when somebody tells me no, what I hear is not yet. Meaning, if somebody told Elizabeth Taylor, no, we're not going to pay you $1 million for this movie, what she heard was not yet. And she figured out, what do I have to do to get it? But I love that approach to life. And that's pretty much what it is. When life throws you challenges, you don't give up. You can still go after what you want. It's just that you have to figure out a way to get it. Not yet, but you can work around it. So I think that's one of the keys with Saturn, is being mature and being responsible to yourself. That doesn't mean to be selfish. It means taking care of yourself. Watch what you eat, get some exercise, have a job that you like, and live as healthily as you can, spiritually and mentally and psychologically. It takes effort, but it's not like digging a ditch. It's really more about becoming more and more and more self-aware. And as you do that, you'll also become more and more aware of other people and more sensitive, I think, and compassionate to them.
Yeah, that's great. I love that mantra with Elizabeth, with Saturn. There you go, folks. If you have Saturn plaguing you down right now, not yet. Just redraft it and come back and create it a different way, right? That's great. Love that. Okay, that takes care of the conjunction. What about if we moved on around and you want to do squares and oppositions next?
Well, sure. You can treat them the same. It's just that with an opposition, unlike a square, with an opposition, you have a polarity. And one of the things I like to do with any opposition, if you have Sun-Saturn opposition, see if there's a third planet that sextiles one end and trines the other end of that opposition, because that third planet will turn that opposition into a real asset. It will still be stressful, because all hard aspects like oppositions and squares are stressful. But with the square, you don't have the polarity that you do with the opposition. You have absolutely conflicting energies, and those are the hard ones. So I tell clients this all the time when they're talking about whether to be true to themselves or not. You're not doing anybody any favors if you stick around a situation that is toxic for you and you try to conform to other people's wishes. It'll never happen. You will always resent it, and they will pick up on the resentment, and it will affect the whole thing. Be true to yourself without being cruel to other people. You don't have to be that either. And the opposition, it's the same sort of conflict, and there will be conflicts between doing what other people want you to. This could be a boss, an employer. Well, you have to, or you're going to lose your job. But that still is that hard aspect conflict between the Sun and Saturn. When you have it in hard aspect square oppositions, there will be conflict with superiors. So you know that from birth. Then when it happens, when you start getting into conflicts with superiors, you can say, all right, how do I handle this? Because you can minimize those conflicts. They'll still happen, but you'll minimize them if you're just aware beforehand that I have a chart that's prone to conflicts with superiors. I have the same chart, which is why I prefer to work for myself. So you can begin to take these things into consideration like I'm doing, just hard and soft aspects. And that's kind of the key. Is there going to be conflict between Sun and Saturn, or Trines Sextiles? Are they going to work in harmony with each other? It's a whole different ballgame.
How do you see Saturn working in harmony with those trines and sextiles?
Oh, when Saturn is in sextile or trine to your Sun, then the whole notions of everything Saturn represents, maturity, responsibility, and so on, are easy for the person. They accept them easily. And generally, they're not forced on that person. Often you'll see people with the Sun and hard aspect to Saturn, because of their early birth circumstances, they will be sometimes made to be responsible very early, like being born into a family that doesn't have much money, and the kids have to somehow earn a living, even early, go make some nickels. So it can be hard circumstances that are other, but the sextile and trines, to me, are tremendous assets for growth and stability, because when it comes to the key structural decisions in life, the Saturnian decisions, those people will tend to either on their own know how to handle things, or they will seek out and get good professional advice to tell them what to do with the main things: money, a major purchase of a home or so on. So that's one of the things that those easy aspects mean. It's very supportive, basic, and it also contributes to long life, the easy aspects. I have to tell you, though, this is something to be aware of. Just because you see hard aspects to the sun, I have them. My son's in a grand cross with Saturn. I was raised, as everybody knows, with alcoholic parents, loved to drink, and here I am 20 years old, loving to drink. Everybody I know drinks, except I'm realizing now that I suddenly am in astrology, and the book says, look out for alcohol. You got a problem. And I thought, wait a minute. So I began, it was pretty early on, like the first week that I got into astrology. I thought, wait a minute, this old chart, this horoscope is telling me I have a drinking problem. Maybe I need to be aware. Suddenly I'm awake now to something. So starting very early with my Grand Cross chart, I have a horrible horoscope, but I thought, is this fate or can I do anything about this? Well, the answer, of course, is you can do something about it. If you understand your horoscope, understand your life, you don't like these aspects, you don't like these results that you're getting in this area of life, change it. And you can. It takes work. You have to put out the effort always with Saturn, but the soft aspects are great.
You know, Saturn gets such a rap in astrology. I mean, it's called the Great Malefic. I mean, goodness sakes, how do you get past that reputation? You know, and then it's always representing things dour, like delays or even take things away. And look, I got clubbed over the head when Saturn and Pluto swept all of my planets over about a 7-year period. I mean, it was brutal, but it was the change that made me who I am today. So I needed to go through it. That was my path. But I tell you now, on this side of Saturn, I love Saturn. I really do. And I say that respectfully. But looking at it from the positive side, it's about, as you said, things that last forever. It's about solid, firm foundations. It's about no nonsense. It's about a legacy. Those are things that are all very top of mind for me right now. So it's almost like got the bad part over, now can enjoy the good. And it really is good.
You just hit it. Finally got to the good. Notice the finally. It takes maturity to get to Saturn. Generally, people don't fully live their Saturn archetype consciously until they're older. It took me until I was 50 years old, even with astrology, 50 years old, to finally realize this has been staring me in the face all these years. I'm a solitaire by nature. I'm not meant for marriage. But I didn't know that when I started out. And you've got biology and hormones working. And so I've had 2 wonderful relationships, marriage. Thank God we never got the license, but nonetheless, they were wonderful relationships. Both of them, when they ended, broke my heart. Guess who broke them up? Me. I broke them up. It still killed me to do it. And it took me as long to get, I've got a great chart for tragic loves. But what I realized after the last one had been receding into the past for a little while, that's when I finally realized that this has been true for you all your life. You have always loved your work more than anybody and a relationship. And that was true. I have Venus ruling my 5th house of creativity. And so I started off very early as taking piano lessons. This was at my dad's bequest. He paid himself through college with his own band, played trumpet. So music, art was in that. Then acting was. And that's what got me to California, acting. And I loved every minute of it. Then I instantly discovered astrology out there. And oh my gosh, what an incredible thing to have. And then 15 years later, I wanted to write for television and did. So I have loved my work. Everything I like to do, you have to do alone. And what kind of a wife is going to permit, if you're an astrologer, having clients come into the house and then you go off to a private room for a couple of hours and completely ignore the family while you have a reading? That's not going to work. So I didn't know it. I was not conscious of it at 20. But I had already set out on a path that was not conducive to a wife and kids, but I didn't know it. So I tried it with another man's 3 children. So I was very lucky to have the experience without having the responsibility of raising them, because I would have resented the hell out of it. That's the truth. Not a pleasant truth, maybe, but a Saturnian truth. That's the reality of me.
I was going to say, that's a good Saturnian element right there, is facing the truth, whether it's popular or not.
And look how long it took me, 50 years.
That's when I started to change. The second divorce was at around 48. I shook my fist up in the heavens for about a year, and then I realized you got to get a hold of this. And that was 49, 50 years old. Yeah. I agree with that.
But look at what I mean. But this is what is so amazing to me today, Thomas. I never anticipated this, even though I had read it in the books. They say I've got Capricorn rising, and Capricorn sun, same thing. That the older you get, you will get happier, healthier, wealthier, and wiser. All right, that's the promise. Well, it turns out to be true, but I have to pat myself on the back for at least giving up drinking, but understanding what it was. I particularly chose transactional analysis to do that because I had a lot of psychology, and that was what I wanted. I thought it would be the most effective, and it was. So it took work. And then I quit smoking finally, like an idiot, with my chart, Gemini in the 6th house, the lungs. Are you kidding? Mercury, semi-square Pluto in my house of death. I got a great chart for dying of lung cancer right there. So what kind of idiot smokes for 40 years? Was that? Me. But I quit. I quit. And today I have a little bit of COPD, which my pulmonologist, which I just got last year, says will not. He said, "You quit smoking, right?" I said, "Yeah." "How long?" 15 years ago. "Fine. It's not going to progress. That's all I need to know." But I don't have lung cancer. I think hopefully I stopped soon enough. I don't know. But this is how we, even with astrology, and you can see it in your own chart, everybody's a human being. Sometimes it's not easy to give up self-destructive habits until you get a handle on why would I want to destroy myself.
Yeah, and that's funny that you quit drinking in your 30s. What was I've never asked you this. What was the justification to keep smoking if you were kind of going through the vices? You could have thrown smoking out.
They tell you it's bad. It's a bad idea to try to quit 2 habits at once. And smoking and drinking are very related with people. It's hard enough to quit one, and they tell you, and I think it's probably true. And plus, I loved to smoke. Loved it. I like smoking much more than I did drinking when I think back on it. Because it gives you something to do with your hands. You got the oral stimulation, you have the visual with the smoke, and then you have the high from the nicotine. So you get addicted to that too. So in fact, I read once, Thomas, many years ago in Psychology Today, that if a person has had 3 cigarettes before the age of 18, no matter how far apart those cigarettes are, the odds are 99-1 that they will be a nicotine addict as an adult, that it is hard. It's more addictive than heroin.
I've had doctors tell me that.
So it's a tough habit, but you keep trying. I tried first with stop smoking. I tried acupuncture. I went to a Chinese doctor. She did the staples in the ears, and it helped for a little while. Didn't really finish it. Then I went to another Dr. Chi-Wat Chu, who had written the textbook on acupuncture that the UCLA Medical School used. Went to him, and boy, did that work. Couldn't believe it.
Wow. Good for you. How old were you when you quit smoking?
Well, the first time I was maybe, let me think here, about 38, 39, somewhere in there. And I quit smoking for about, I guess, 8 years or so, and then decided, I'd love a cigarette. Well, you can't have just one cigarette. You can't buy just one cigarette. So I started again and then quit again about 15 years ago, I guess now.
Yeah. Well, good. Glad that's out. Okay.
So to me, though, this is a big purpose of astrology, is to make you conscious of how you are defeating yourself. Life's challenging enough, thank you. But on top of that, if you come out of a toxic background, the odds are you're going to have some self-destructive behaviors. And you need to know what they are and not be afraid of them, and certainly not think that you're a victim of them. And this is why I could never do AA, for example, is because the requirement there is that you stand up every time you attend, weekly or daily or whatever it is, and say, my name is Bob, and I am powerless over this inanimate liquid in this bottle over here. Well, I don't believe that. So to me, it was like they're asking me to stand up and give a negative affirmation every time I show up. My name is Bob, and I'm powerless over this liquid over here. Not for me. Plus, I didn't want to go to AA the rest of my life. So I had found by then different kinds of psychology, and this was transactional analysis. Dr. Eric Byrne out of Canada, psychiatrist, but his take on alcoholism and all these other things made a lot of sense to me. So I thought, well, let me get into one of those groups. And I asked a psychologist friend of mine if he knew of a group, a transactional therapist, and he did, and that's how I got into that group.
I love working with all of these. The way that, as you were talking there, I was just thinking about how beautiful the tapestry is, how astrology covers all these areas of our life, and it just pulls it all together. And then as you do work through the timeline of life, there they are. There they are, right on time.
Well, I've got to tell you, man, and I tell this to clients too all the time. I mean, here's the unbelievable thing. I've been realizing now for at least 7 years that I have never been this constantly happy in my life. I've had peak moments, wonderful moments, but to be able to sit here and tell you I've had at least 7 years now of being consciously aware that I am really deeply happy. It's an amazing feeling.
You and I are both
really
living our charts.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. I think astrology has helped me, and I think you too, from what I know, to realize what we're all about. Good, bad, and indifferent. And the bad we can minimize or eliminate. And when we do, it opens up those energies. They don't have any negative ways to work out anymore. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not smoking anymore. So there's no way they can work out through those things. So they turn into the same archetype, Mars energy or whatever it is. But now all they have, you're not giving them any negative outlets. All they have are positive ones.
Exactly.
And the result is just amazing to me, to be this age, almost 79 in just a few months, to be this age and feel this good and be this happy is unbelievable to me. I love it.
Kudos to both of us.
I really do. I have to lay this all on the grounds of astrology. I would not be here. I would not be alive today if it weren't for this. Truly. So, of course, I love it.
All right, great stuff. Thank you so much for this. We only have 2 more planets to go. We have Uranus next and Pluto last. Why are we not doing Neptune? We've already done it. It's back in one of the previous episodes. That's how we actually began this little series. And then we thought, we got something here. Let's keep it going. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to contact Robert for a reading, his information is in the show notes. So is a link to our YouTube channel of just the Old Soul, New Soul podcasts, and also our Discord link, which you can really get to easily by going to the funastrology.com website. And the conversation continues there. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time on Old Soul, New Soul with Robert Glasscock.